Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about God's timing, and specifically God's timing as it pertains to singleness, and really just speaking encouragement into this season. It's been a while since I've made a video on singleness, but if you've been around my channel for a while, you know that I used to make a lot of content on singleness, both blog posts and YouTube videos. I've made YouTube videos on contentment in singleness, on how to know, like, should I be taking initiative or waiting on God, and what does that even mean, or what does that look like? I've made videos on online dating and should you do it, and just questions to think through. And I've even written a devotional on singleness, which I'll have linked down below if you want to check it out. And the reason I've made so much content on singleness is because I was in that season for a really long time. I was single for almost my entire 20s. I'm 29 now, and I just got married 3 months ago, back in November, to my best friend Tyler. And even though I'm no longer in my season of singleness, I know that a lot of you have asked me to still make videos on singleness from time to time, which I definitely want to do, and I definitely have a huge heart to speak encouragement into that season, simply because I know well what it was like to wait and to be in a waiting season. And so in today's video, I actually want to share a part of mine and Tyler's story that I don't think I've shared before, that I'm really hoping will encourage you in the waiting. And sort of how this all came about, I was actually talking to a good friend of mine who is still in her season of singleness and who desires marriage. And if you have been single for a good amount of time, you know that in that there's good and bad days, right? There's the days where you feel really content where you're at, where you feel full of purpose and your life feels full and you're not really thinking much about it. But then there's also hard days where it feels like it's at the forefront of your mind and you feel that desire so strongly. And both days are normal, both days are going to happen, both days are okay when we are seeking God, pressing into Him in both. And so I was talking to this friend, and she was in one of those discouraged seasons and just saying, Case, I feel like I've just been asking God for this for so long. And I know He cares, but sometimes it just feels like, man, does He even care? Does He even hear me? Because year after year, I've been asking Him for this thing, and He doesn't seem to be moving. He doesn't seem to be doing anything. As we were talking, I thought back to one specific time when I remember so clearly feeling this way. Again, there were pockets of feeling this way and seasons of feeling this way throughout my years of being single. But I thought back on one specific time where I know I felt this way so strongly. It was in the fall of 2018, and I remember just crying out to God, just feeling so discouraged, feeling like I had been praying for this desire for so long, seeing so many of my friends get married, standing up beside them in so many of their weddings, and watching many of them even begin to have families. And I remember just praying and saying, God, do you even care? Do you see this desire of my heart? I felt like I was literally begging Him to just show me that He cared in some way, to show me that He heard me, that He was moving, that He was doing something, yet nothing was changing. Now, fast forward to when Tyler and I started dating, which, by the way, I still plan to share the full story of how that came about and how God worked in that here on my channel. But for now, you just need to know that He first asked me out for the very first time in November of 2019. Our wedding anniversary, November 13th, was actually 2 years to the day from when He first asked me out. But He asked me out in November of 2019, and from there was a handful of months of back and forth and just being friends because God was doing a work in my heart. But when we actually started officially dating and things were progressing, Tyler and I were talking at one point about what made him first notice me and what made him want to ask me out and just his thought process behind all of that. And he was like, I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but I actually wanted to ask you out a year before I actually did. And I was like, really? Why didn't you? And he was like, yeah, I had been thinking about it for a while. I was praying about it. But right around that time, one of my friends actually came up to me at church and was like, man, I've been thinking about asking Casey out. I'm thinking of talking to Charles about it, who was the youth pastor that we were all serving under at the time. And he's like, what do you think? And Tyler's like, yeah, and didn't really know what to say and didn't want to be like, well, actually, I was thinking about it, so you can't. So he's like, yeah, you should go for it. And so Tyler kind of felt like that was his answer at that point. And so this other guy ended up asking me out, and we did go on a date. It didn't go anywhere simply because we weren't each other's person. He's a great guy, and we're both still friends with him. But as Tyler was telling me this story, I realized my husband, the man I was going to end up with, the man that God always had for me, That man, Tyler, literally wanted to ask me out and was praying about asking me out a year before he actually did ask me out, which happened to be exactly when I was praying to God and pleading with him to bring my husband into my life. Now, here's the part of the story I haven't told you guys yet. The fall of 2018, I would say, was probably one of the more low periods in my life. I had just gone through a situation with another guy that had left my heart hurting, that had left me feeling so confused as to what God was doing and why he had allowed certain things to happen. And I would say there were several moments and periods throughout those months where I felt depressed. Needless to say, I was in a place where I really needed God to heal my heart. And so as Tyler is telling me this for the first time, that he actually wanted to ask me out an entire year before he did, at this point in our relationship, he of course knew everything about the situation with the other guy, and he knew sort of more of where I had been at during that season in my life. And as we were talking through it, we realized that if he had asked me out a year prior when he first wanted to, it probably wouldn't have been good. Not only was I not at all in a good place to enter into a relationship, even though I wanted to, even though I was pleading with God to bring my husband into my life, but also Tyler, looking at the period of time between the fall of 2018 and when we actually started dating, there's a lot that happened in his life and a lot of ways that God grew him to also make him ready for the relationship we then entered into. And so as I was literally begging God to bring my husband into my life, my husband, my future husband, literally wanted to be in my life. He wanted to ask me out. And so as I was asking God to move in this area, he literally could have made it happen right then and there, but he not only didn't, he actually allowed it to be prevented because he knew that it was for our good. Now, being married now, I'm not going to say that there's no part of us that wishes we could have started dating sooner, but seeing how God has brought us together now, it is so crystal clear to the both of us that it had to happen in the exact way that it happened and in the exact timing that it did. God is a masterful storyteller, and there is no detail he doesn't think of, no piece of our stories he doesn't think to redeem. And so I just want to share that encouragement with you that God's timing can be trusted. And that doesn't mean that there's going to be absolutely no part of you that doesn't maybe sometimes wish you could have gotten to experience that gift a little bit sooner. But I do wholeheartedly believe that when you have that gift, you will see God's purpose in it and understanding why it needed to happen exactly when it did. God is good, he is wise, he sees the end from the beginning, and he can be trusted. There's a verse in Isaiah 60:22 I love that says, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." There's also another quote I love that says, "When it's not God's timing, nothing can force it, but when it is God's timing, nothing can stop it." I hope you guys found this video encouraging. I also did want to mention to you that Christian counseling is something that's been helpful to me at different points in my life. I'm a huge verbal processor, and so I remember even going through different pockets of my season of singleness where things felt difficult, or even just different situations in my life. It's something that's been helpful for me. I think it's really important that counseling doesn't replace being plugged into a local church and having that in-person community, but I think it can be a really valuable tool to have just that third-party space to process things. And I just wanted to mention that because I always have a link down in my description for Christian counseling. If you ever want to check it out, you can get 10% off. So check that out if that's something you're interested in. Also, if there's anything specific within singleness that you would like me to make a video on, or any encouragement you would like me to speak into it, leave a comment down below and I would love to make that video for you. But once again, thank you so much for watching this one. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, and then also hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.